Hello friends, welcome to my channel Codeunit. Today in this video we will learn about the concept of install Codeunit in the Business Central. I have made the video in the past as well for this install Codeunit, but that covers only the very basic concept of the install Codeunit, and you could treat it as a part one. And today we will see this concept in more detail and more in depth. So to test or to understand the concept of this install code unit in the various scenarios, I have created one table and one page. Okay, and a very basic two fields I have added, number and name, right? And added the same in the page as well. Okay, so that we will see that when the install code unit will run and how it will run and what type of data it will store into this table. Okay, so let's create a new file and create the install code unit itself. Okay, install test cu.al t code unit, right? Let me name it as installation test. Okay, to make uh, a code unit and installation code unit, we have to add this property called subtype as install. So as soon as you add this subtype, it will system will understand that this code unit is not a normal one, and you want to treat this as an installation code unit. Okay. Now there will be two triggers available here. So one trigger is on install app per company, and second trigger is on install app per database. So let's understand the concept that why these two triggers are available and when under which scenarios you have to add per company one and per database one. So for this, let me open one URL here called data per company property. Okay, so if you have seen this before, if you have worked this before, very good. If you have not seen this, let's see what this definition is saying. It is saying that sets a value that indicates whether the table data applies to all the companies in the database or only the current company, right? So we know that in our Business Central, we have one database, right? In that one database, we can create multiple companies as well, and each company holds the unique data in the table. Why it is happening? Or sometimes all the companies have the common data for one table. So this segregation is happening because of this data per company property, that it depends that whether the data will be unique per company level or at per database level, right? What it says is that true if the data is available only to this company, otherwise false, right? The default value is true, which means that if you don't define this property, the data per company property will by default is true, and hence the data which will be stored in your table will always be unique at company level, right? So for example, the concept of install code unit is nothing that but when this extension is gets installed on the system, at that point of time, if you want to fill out some certain setups by code itself, which you don't want that user should entertain manually, so at that point of time, this code unit will run automatically while installing the extension, and it will run that code itself, and it will store those setups data which you want to do. And then that is the reason uh, the developer should understand that which trigger I have to use. Like if I'm dealing with a table where the data per company is true by itself, that means you have to use this per company trigger. If you are dealing with a table which is common at database level and there you have to make some changes, then you have to use this on install app per database trigger, right? So as I said that mostly all the tables are by default data per company is true. So the most common use trigger is on install app per company. So let me use this one. Okay, so now let's create one variable. Okay, so I have created one variable called mod info, and it is of type module info. Okay, let's like the use case of this is nothing but it will store the information about your module, about your app, about your extension with respect to the application version, with respect to the data version, with respect to everything. Okay, but to make this variable hold all these values, we need to use one more uh, data type like nav app dot get current module info. Okay, and here we have to pass this mod info. Okay, it is a standard code. Like basically, this is a recommended code if you are writing an install code unit. And how this helps your extension is that this function will basically, while this extension is installing in the system, this function will fetch the information of your extension. What it is saying, get the current information of your module about your application and pass that details into the mod info object. Okay, now if you see this mod info have all these functions available like app version, data version, dependencies, ID, name, package ID, publisher. So as I mentioned that this will hold all the information about your application now. And this all details are passed to this object by using this line called navapp.getCurrentModuleInfo. If you don't write this, then if you print this information of mod info, you will find it as a blank. Okay. Now the thing is, for install code unit, what we need to use is that we have to write if mod info dot data version equals to version dot create 0 comma 0 comma 0 comma 0. Okay, then. So why I have written this line? I have written this line that just to check that because the installation is of multiple types in the business center. Like uh, we have to understand that it is not like that installation will always be fresh, right? Like when the extension is not at all available in your database in your business center and you are installing it for the first time. But there is a second scenario of the installation as well where we uninstall our extension for some reasons and then user have to install it again. Okay, so it will be called as the reinstall. Okay, so we have to cover both these two scenarios that what should happen when you are installing freshly for the first time and what should happen when you are reinstalling the extension. So to check whether you are installing freshly or whether you are installing second time, this line of code will help us. And that is why we use this mod info variable and this get current module info. What we are saying here is that mod info dot data version equals to version dot create. So uh, we know that when this extension is installed, when I press Control F5, it will be installing. At that point of time, this extension has no reference to my business center, nothing like that. So it will be zero, right? This value holds nothing. There is no information of my module into the current database. So it will return zero. And because the syntax of the version is like, if you see the app.json, the syntax of the version is like this in this format 1.0.0.0. Okay, so that's why I use this standard one which have this function called create. So and pass it the 0.0.0.0. So what it will do is that it will turn this 4 times 0 into a format of version, and thus we will match that if this is 0 and this is 0, then you should treat this extension as a fresh install. So we will create one function called handle fresh install. Okay. Otherwise, else handle reinstall, right? So this is what we need to write in the on install app per company trigger, that based on if I'm installing, if my extension is installed for the first time, it should treat it as a fresh install, otherwise it should treat it as a reinstall, and based on this, the functions will run. Okay, so let me create procedures now, and here we will write the actual code. Okay, let me delete this line. If you don't know the keyboard shortcut to delete the line, the keyboard shortcut is Control Shift K and it will delete your line. Okay, so now let's see what we need to write in our fresh installation. So as you know that I have created one new table. So I'll name it as extension setup record, extension setup. And here as well, I will create one variable extension setup record extension setup. Okay, so I just want to create one record when it is installing for the first time, and when it will happen for the reinstallation at the same time also I want to create one record here. So what I can do here is that if not uh, extension setup is empty, then extension setup dot delete all. Okay, and then extension setup dot init, extension setup dot number equals to 1, extension setup dot name is equals to fresh install. Okay, I'll write this caption as fresh install so that we will know what uh, at what point of time which function will is running. Okay, so extension setup dot insert, right? So this is my function of handle fresh install is doing that it will create one record with the name fresh install. Okay, if we see this record, we know that okay, this handle fresh install is runs. Okay, in the same manner, what I can do here is that if not extension setup dot is empty, then extension setup dot find last. Okay, now because first time always the fresh install will run, so I know that if the reinstall is running, fresh install already runs before, so this table might have some data also, right? So I want to create a second record then in those scenarios, and thus I can write like this: extension setup dot init, extension setup dot number equals to extension setup dot number plus 1, extension setup dot name, and this time I will pass reinstall, right? And then extension setup dot insert. So this is what is happening at the time of reinstallation, that it will create another record but with the caption reinstall, right? So now my installation code unit setup is done. I have handled both the scenarios, that what will happen at the time when the fresh installation is going on and what will happen at the time when the reinstallation is going on, right? But still, this is not complete. For example, if you are writing a code for the installation code unit, then also it is not enough that you just complete writing the code for this code unit itself. There is one more use case which we have to cover, is this new company initialize .al. Okay, so we have to handle here this thing as well. Okay, let me name it as new company, and this should be static automatic. Let me do one thing. Okay, I'll create one event subscriber, object type code unit, company initialize. Okay, and then I need to use one event which is called on company initialize. And then I don't need any element name here. I can turn it as false. I can turn it as false. Okay, and here also I can create something like this only, which is the reinstallation case. Control C, new company initialize. Okay, where what happened? Am I doing some mistake here? Hmm, record extension setup. Okay, but this time what I will do here is that I will pass not the reinstall caption but the subscriber install. Okay, so this case is nothing but basically we there are some scenarios where all the extensions are already installed in the user database, but then users under various scenarios create a new company. Okay, so if your extension is already installed and then user is creating a new company, at that point of time what should happen? Because your extension might require this setup to be done automatically in this to this table. But now for the new company, your table will hold no records, zero records because of the data per company trigger, and it will not trigger automatically for you at the time when the extension is already installed. So neither the handle fresh install will work and neither the handle reinstall will work. So we know that when a new company is created, at that point of time, this company initialized code unit will run, this integration event will run. So we have subscribed to this event, and then we are handling that case as well, and we want that at that point of time also our table should hold the records. Just for your reference purposes, even Microsoft have created one error cop code, 000235, I think. Uh, yeah, sorry, not double A, I think. Business Central. or maybe I'm not double zero. Install code unit code cop. Yeah, this one. So this is also one code cop number which Microsoft have created, but by default it is not somehow working. But you can understand this that what it is saying is that when using on install app per company, right, in the installation code unit, you should also add company initialize on company initialize event subscriber also, right? Because as I mentioned that if you use this trigger, then it will not run when your extension is already installed, and then neither the handle fresh install function will work and neither the handle reinstall function will work. And thus your table will hold no records in the new company. And that is why we are writing this code as well, just to avoid this error. Okay. So now we have handled all those things. Let's build the project and let's deploy it. So now we will see all these three scenarios, the results of these three scenarios, at how the system is creating the records in my table. So now at this point of time, my extension is getting installed. So it is the first time when it is installing. Okay, so it is first time, then the handle fresh install will run and we will see that it will create a record of fresh install. Okay, so let's see what will happen. It is installed. So now let's go to the search bar and go to my table called extension setup. And if you see here, you will see this that now the record is already available with the name fresh install, which means that handle fresh install function was run. And why it ran? Because of that condition which I passed in my code unit is this one, that if mod info data version is equal to version.create, right? So this function is running and now it created the records. Now let's see the reinstallation case. To understand the reinstallation case, let me go to the extension management. And here, as you can see, that this is my extension. Some scenarios are there that, for example, if I want to uninstall it, you know that even after the uninstallation, this extension is still listed. Okay, and to remove it completely, I need to go with the unpublish. So let me go with the uninstall first. And now this is a very important step, that when you press the uninstallation, you can see this, that this line is coming up. Delete extension data. This check is very important. If you check this mark as true and then uninstall, which means that it will not only delete the extension, but it will delete the data as well from your database, from company level, from the database level, and thus this extension will be of no use and you have to unpublish it, right? But in the scenarios where you just uninstall and keep it as true, right, and then you install again, then the fresh installation handle fresh install will work, because at that point of time you have not unpublished it, right? But although you are reinstalling, but because there is no data available, hence the data version turns zero and it could be possible. The second scenario is that if you keep this as false and you just press uninstall, which I'm doing at the moment. Okay, so I've uninstalled it, but I'm not unpublishing it. Okay, so my extension is installed. I mean, my extension is still available. It is not unpublished, and my data is still there. Okay, so if I click on install now, click on next, click on install. So it is now installed. And now if I want to see what happened in my table extension setup, so you will see that system has created a second record. Reinstall caption is there, which means that now when I uninstalled, because the data was there, okay, the application was there, and hence the first condition, which is data version was not zero, and thus reinstall was running, and then it created a record with the reinstall caption. So this is the case where we have to see both the scenarios, that what should happen at a time of fresh installation, what should happen at a time of reinstallation, right? Now, the if you see, like if you uninstall it again, let me show you again. Like if you uninstall it multiple times, then if you install it again, then also in all those scenarios, now only the reinstall case is running and fresh installation case will never happen until and unless you remove the data as well, or you remove the extension itself, right? So see, third time also the reinstallation is running. Now, as I mentioned, if you uninstall with the delete data and then you unpublish the extension as well, then it will work like that. But if you just delete the data, extension is still there, or if you don't delete the data, but you delete the extension, that is also a case. Like if you uninstall it without turning this true, and then you unpublish as well, in that scenario also, data is remain there in your table, right? Uninstall, let me, and then I'll unpublish as well. Okay, so now if I want to install, okay, let's see what happens. Because last time when I installed via VS Code, when the extension was not there, it created a, or it handles the record as a fresh installation case. Now, this time I have uninstalled the extension, I have unpublished the extension, but I have not deleted the data. So we will see now what will happen, whether the fresh install will work or whether the reinstall will work. So it installed the extension very correctly and I did not receive any error. So let's go to the table and see what is the use case. And you can see here the fourth record gets created with the name reinstall, right? So this is a very special case where uninstallation happened without any data deletion, and that is why reinstallation case. So I hope you have now understood that why we have written the two functions were fresh installation, reinstallation. Okay, let's see the third scenario where if I go to the company, okay, let me type company, and here I'll create a new company. Next, and name it as, let's say, test without any data. Click on next, next, finish. Okay, so it will take around 1 minute of time, not more than that, because I'm creating a new company without any data. But this is also a scenario, guys, that your extension is installed, all the code of the install code unit already runs successfully, but still in your business now the new requirement is that you have to create a new company. So when you create a new company, your extensions will be available there as well. But install code unit will not run accordingly because you have used the trigger on install app per company, right? So if your extension is installed, but it has not configured the setup properly, then user might start receiving errors and they will not be able to use your process, whatever your extension holds. So to cover this scenario, we have written this event subscriber code unit that even for such cases where user will create a new company after your extension after your extension is already installed. So at that point of time also, uh, my extension behaves correctly and whatever required setups are there, they should be available. So you can see that in my Cronus company, four records are already available. Okay, like this fresh install, reinstall. Now, if I go to my new company as test, let's see what my new company holds. Although this table belongs to the data per company, right? So let's see whether the new company also holds the four records or it will hold only the one record. And if it holds the one record also, it is of which caption. And you can see now that it holds only one record because of the data per company, right? And the caption says subscribe install. So that means it did not run this trigger on install app per company, right? Because we have seen it before that if I was installing the extension, if I was reinstalling the extension, at that point of time, this trigger was running automatically. And I have not run this trigger manually anywhere. And based on the condition, it ran fresh install or it ran reinstall. But when I created a new company, this trigger did not run at all. So, and because this trigger did not run, hence it did not cover either of the scenarios. So to cover that scenario as well, we have written this initialize code unit, and this function was running at that point of time, and hence that's why you have seen this caption called subscriber install, right? So this is how we have handled now all these three scenarios, three or four scenarios, by the way, that what will happen at a time of fresh install, what will happen when user deletes the extension without deleting the data, what will happen when user not only delete the extension but unpublish the extension as well without deleting the data, and what will happen when user creates a new company after your extension is already installed, right? So these are the cases which we have to handle when we are writing the installation code unit, especially with the uh, company per company trigger, right? So that's all. I hope you have understand now the concepts of install code unit, which you will handle whenever you write any installation code unit further. And if you like it, I request you to please hit the like button and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video.